Somerville Historic. Oh, sorry, jumped the gun. Hi, good evening. Welcome. This is the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission. This is our May 6th meeting at 6:45. May 6th, 19. My mind is all. May 6th, 2025. It is 6:45 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order. And just a reminder that pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Act of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Historic Preservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation. A video recording of these proceedings will be available on the city's website, meetings and events page, or by emailing historic@somerville.com. And can get my screen back. Before we do anything else, I'll do our customary introductions, starting with Mr. Bauer.
Hi, I'm Dick Bauer. I'm an attorney and I was trained as a city planner, and I live in the Spring Hill neighborhood.
Thank you. Mr. Falvey.
Hi, I'm Ryan Falley, and I am a resident of Ward 2.
Ms. Price.
Hi, my name's Denise Price, and I live in a local historic district.
Thank you. And Eric Parks, the chair and architect, Ward 3 Historic Homeowner. And we have staff here tonight of two of you, right? You'd introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Madison Anthony. I'm a planner with Planning, Preservation, and Zoning, and I believe it is just me here right now.
Oh, just you. Okay. Yep. Sorry, I jumped the gun. Okay. Well, we have 3 items on our agenda tonight, and I just pull that agenda up again. The first item is an alteration to local historic district property. The case is HP 25-000004-80 Hinkley Street. The applicant is Eric Kortz. The owner is Peter Doherty. And the applicant seeks a certificate of appropriateness to alter a LHD property by removing the rear mudroom, installing an awning on the rear, and replacing the vinyl windows. Is the applicant here tonight?
I'm Eric Kortz. I'm the contractor.
Hi, welcome. Just give us, now we have some materials. I think there's some questions about a couple things. If you could give us a quick rundown of what you're planning to do, if you want to fill in any more information that's not apparent from the agenda.
Yeah. So the request from the client was 2 items. One, he has a mudroom that appears to have been added later in the life of the building. It's like added on after the original siding. It's kind of an ugly squarish structure and it's inconvenient for them. So they were asking to remove that structure and then just add an awning. We did upload a rendering of that awning, which I could probably screen share it if that was more convenient for you all. And that was something that he'd seen echoed in other houses in the area. I don't know if there was a historical precedent for it, but that's what he was looking for. Looked more in character than what's there in a lot of ways. And then the second ask was to replace the existing vinyl windows with something new and not deteriorated. He was pretty open-minded on that. We've specified Marvin Elevate, which is a good window with a 2/2 sash layout that is common in that area.
Okay, thanks. What do you all think? Should we pull up from the benefit if there are any members of the public, if you want to share your screen? I see it on my screen already, but it's always good if anybody doesn't happen to have the staff report available, could see it.
I think it'd probably be good to put it up, but then move through pretty quickly.
Sure. Are you
It is going to take me a few minutes. I think I have to pull it off the website. I don't have
Okay.
it stored locally, but I can work on that.
This
Alright.
is Madison
we can put
Anthony
it up.
speaking. I could probably pull it up, or unless Peter wants to pull it up.
Yeah, I can pull something up. Sorry, were you asking for the Which specific thing did you want to look at?
The rendering of the awning.
Okay.
I suppose if, well, let's wait a little bit. I was gonna say we could move to public comment while you're pulling that up, but let's just wait till that's up for people to see. Do you have a picture of the back there? It's like the next screen down, maybe.
Yes. Sorry, switching tabs. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the back of the house. How do I view slideshow?
So your proposal is to replace that little protrusion with a little gabled thing with brackets, it looks like.
Yeah, so like, and also you can see that this abuts the property line, so you can't actually walk around the house. And it's in
Oh.
very poor condition, so like rebuilding it on the property line never seemed like a wise decision. So that's the renderings of the current, and then this was the renderings of just so like a gable roof door hood. With the, that would, I mean, it would match the existing materials of the house. It's just asphalt, black asphalt shingles, and just simple wood trim. There's no real other materials there.
Do you have the
Um,
render of the awning? I can't see it.
Yeah, I
Looks like-
think it is. Sorry, is this?
It's just down if I'm looking at this right, the next sheet down maybe on your
Oh, I thought I switched.
slide.
Oh, sorry. I'm like, it's on the wrong screen. This one. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are two things. So there's that, and then the Marvin, do you happen to have any information on those windows other than the manufacturer and the type?
Eric, I do have the window order up on one of my other screens. I can share that if that's helpful for anyone, or I could upload it to the chat or something like that if we can figure that out.
If you could just put the screen up so we could see that.
Sure.
Images.
Let me figure that out. Share. Here we go. Screen. Start broadcast. So this is the window order. Can you guys see this now?
I see. Yes, I see what you're doing. I see myself.
Sorry, hold on. I can maybe
Right.
minimize you, but I'm on a phone in a parking lot because I had life
Oh,
stuff to
geez.
do. So yeah, I don't think I can get you off of it, but this is the window order. So most of the double hungs he has is 2/2. I think, Peter, would you have a white exterior like it is now, right? We tried to match what was there as best possible while improving the quality. Not changing any sizes or anything like that, just upgrading to a better product that would look similar.
What are they made out of?
So the Elevate is a wood window with a fiberglass clad exterior.
Okay, and how are the Muntins? Are they the simulated divided lights that Marvin does?
These are the simulated divided lights, I believe. Yes, hold on. Let me see. It should say in here what that is.
Yeah,
It's the
that's what that's
STL.
quoted with. Yeah, the simulated
Yeah.
divided light.
And they do, the Elevate does have an option if you guys for some reason preferred the actual like attached SDL, right, on the outside. Well, this is on the outside, right, Peter? It's the one on the
Yeah.
outside of the glass. Yeah.
Yes, that one is.
So it's the piece on the inside and the outside with a little spacer bar that's
Correct. Yeah, they're less expensive lines, only have the inside piece. This has both,
Okay.
so it will appear like a real divided light.
okay. And the existing windows are vinyl, they're not wood, so you would be upgrading from the existing,
Correct.
basically.
Right, but the exterior of the existing is going from vinyl to fiberglass, but it's still like I mean, my understanding was that visually, because just looks like white plastic either way. So
Yeah, I think, well, I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but when you're,
okay.
when you're upgrading, it's all right. I think anybody else in the commission, I've sort of jumped the gun. We should go to public comment. Just if anybody, members of the public would like to speak about this case, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison Anthony speaking. I do not see anyone raising their hand.
Okay, thanks. I'll close the public comment and just toss this out to the commission. What do you all think of this?
I'll speak. I like the awning on the back and the replacement of the current kind of bump out there, which I don't think really necessarily adds much to it. The awning I think is kind of simple and small and classic looking, which I think is nice. I think the window replacement makes good sense as well too. I was just curious about the picture of the front elevation with the porch. Are those window, and those I think are 2/2. Are those, will those all stay intact with what you have now? Or would those be replaced as well too?
The front porch windows
Yeah.
are not being changed at this time.
Okay.
He was gonna leave
Okay.
those, and those are older too, right, Pete? Those aren't the vinyl ones, I don't think.
Correct. So the exterior porch windows would be untouched. Those are original single pane painted in place. But then inside the enclosed porch are two
Got it. So that's
double
where you have
hung
the two
windows.
circles there.
Those
Yeah,
would be
okay.
replaced. Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think those are appropriate changes, and I think you've made some nice decisions on that. So I'd support the project. I'm done.
Thanks, Ryan.
I
Anybody
agree
else?
with what Mr. Falvey said. I definitely appreciate that you're going to be changing the windows out and putting nice 2/2s in to match the front porch. And also it makes a lot of sense to get rid of that strange mudroom in the back and put the cute little hood over it. So I also support the project.
Thank you. Oh, you're muted, Mr. Bauer. So
Thanks. I agree. This all seems like the mudroom stuff makes a lot of sense to me. It'll definitely be an improvement.
makes sense. And I would concur with all of you. I think everything, the windows are something of equal or greater historic merit there. They'll be that an improvement, and the little hood in the back. It's obviously not a super formal, it's a backside, so you would want to put something wildly ornate there, and I think you've got something that's appropriate, so I think it's good as well. So it sounds like there's sort of a consensus. If anybody wants to make a motion, we could go forward with it.
Do we have consensus on the windows?
I think I'm hearing that, although there are any fine details that we're sort of glossing over. I think it's simulated divided light. I believe Marvin offers the black spacer bar, which is always a nice detail because it looks less glittery when you see it obliquely. So I would recommend that. But the color you're proposing white, which is, I don't think there's anything wrong with that in a house like this. This is before we got into the darker colors of the Victorian era. So
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking. If you want to specify anything in the design because the material specifications weren't provided, you could make it a condition.
oh, well, let's make it, I mean, everything we've discussed in the meeting would be, so it's a fiberglass exterior, wood interior, white, simulated divided lights, black spacers, and the manufacturer is listed. This is Marvin. there any loose ends you think of left there?
The only comment I have is that in the recommendation conditions that were listed, sent from staff, number 4 says that the awning must be constructed in such a way that it could be removed at a later date without damaging the material that it's attached to. Is that important to all of us?
It's important, though, there's no way to install it without at least cutting to the siding. So they would be left with a shadow of it in a future date, but that would be a shingle repair.
And since neither the shingles nor the existing mudroom are original, I think I'm not troubled by that.
I would
Okay.
agree.
Okay. then
There's
let's
not going to
avoid
be a
that.
lot of cleanup that's going to be needed just once the mudroom comes off.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to flash the roof behind the shingles too. That's minor, remove and replace, but just for put it on the record, that should be, flashed correctly.
I guess so. There is a new exterior door. Is that a new exterior door, or is there one there already that enters into that vestibule?
That's existing, and I think Peter, you were gonna leave that, right?
Yes, it's an exterior door there. We'd like to add a storm door over it, but keep the existing door.
Okay, so you're not changing that door, and storm doors are not governed by our guidelines. Or-
The person that looked at it said the door could be maintained. It was only if we did this and turned out that there was going to be issues, we might have to replace it, but it would be replaced with the same door. I think it's a fiberglass clad door with like I don't know if you have the pictures of it. They have the renderings, but the intention is to keep the door.
Okay,
Yeah, it's not an original door either. It's a fiberglass with a half light with a nine dividers.
yeah, 2 panels below.
Yeah.
Well, in that it's existing, I don't think we would have any say over that at this point, but if you end up replacing it, just come to staff and they'll decide to what extent it's needs to get reviewed.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I looked at so the recommended conditions, we could adopt those in the conditions.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Chair, just when the board does a vote, when the commission does a vote, just mention that the approval includes the additional condition and then the removal of the other condition regarding the
Number 4.
yes.
Yeah, I think we could just strike that, because I don't think there's anything about that would cause fundamental damage to the form of the building. Okay. So, I think unless anyone has anything else to add to this, we would look for a motion to approve this proposal with the conditions that we just discussed earlier regarding the type of window and adopting the recommended conditions in the staff report with the exception of number 4.
So
Sounds
moved.
good.
Sounds good. Is that the motion?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's moved by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye,
Opposed? And we'll do a roll call, starting with Mr. Bauer,
yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. There you have it, folks. Thank you for coming to us tonight.
Thanks, guys. Good luck.
Thank you all for your time. Appreciate your help.
Thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it.
Have a good night.
Bye. Get back to my agenda. So that was our one and only alteration to local historic district. Our next two cases are demolition delay reviews. The first is a determination of significance. And just to back up for anybody who's here looking, the demolition delay ordinance here is a two-step process where we first review the building to see if it has historic significance without regard to the condition of the building or what might replace it or other things like that. It just looks purely at the building that is there. Does it have enough significance to consider further? If we vote no, then that's it. If we vote yes, we have a subsequent public hearing the next month, and that's the properly preserved hearing where we decide whether it ought to be preserved or not. And in that case, we kind of consider other factors such as the condition, other aspects to it like that. So this is the first step. And this particular case is HP 25-000008, 6 Wheatland Street. The applicant is Adam Dash Associates. The owner is NPO Properties LLC. The applicant seeks to demolish a building constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. The applicant here tonight?
Attorney Adam Dash here, Chair
there.
Parks. If we could also promote Nelson de Oliveira, who is the client. Adam Dash, 48 Grove Street in Somerville, representing the applicant Nelson de Oliveira, who's the main person behind NPO Properties LLC, who is here. For context, 6 Wheatland Street has a 2-family house on it. An applicant is seeking to demolish it to build a new structure with more units to address the city's desperate need for housing. The property was placed in the MR3 zoning district as part of the recent rezoning of the whole city, which calls for larger buildings with more units. So I am going to share my screen so we can all see what we're doing here. Can you see that, Chair Parks?
I'm just doing a little street view. Yes, that's visible.
Okay, great. So what we're talking about is this gray house here in the middle. So the existing structure is a simple 2.5-story house covered in vinyl siding with replacement windows. According to staff report, it was converted from 1 to 2 units at some point and has a slew of 20th century alterations such as the deck, the entry canopy, siding, covered window openings, chimney removal, decorative railings, entry steps. The property is 1 block approximately from the coming redevelopment of the old Broadway Star Market site, which is basically about a block behind it, which will transform this neighborhood with 2 large buildings, a new park, a new civic plaza, and retail storefronts. So you can see here to the left of the building, facing Broadway, is this red brick commercial structure with a windowless brick wall facing 6 Wheatland and a loading dock right here. And you can see here, as such, the current house is not really visible from Broadway, and it's the first residential property in from Broadway. A larger residential structure would be a good transition from the Broadway commercial abutting building and the rest of the residential street. You can see to the right of it, there's an expansion of the house over here to its right. If I go here, again, this is another view. This is the red brick building. The house is diagonally across the street from the house that we're talking about is this larger house multiplex here that is facing Broadway. And if we look in the other direction, you can see Broadway crossing up here. If we turn around, you can see here's the 6 Wheatland house we're talking about. Here's the house under construction. Diagonally across, you can see there's a triple decker here. So Wheatland is sort of a mix of building types, such as the triple decker and the larger detached houses that are down the street. I would note that 6 Wheatland has little charm. It's actually pretty dreary looking property. And it's been altered and not in a good way. And it is in the MR3 zoning district. I'm going to show you here. This is the city's zoning atlas. This blue here is the house we're talking about. So you can see here is Broadway. Here is Wheatland Street. It is part of this pink, which is the MR3, which is along Broadway. And then the rest of the street, as you can see, is just yellow neighborhood residents all the way up. So you can see that this property was lumped in with the commercial properties. This dark purple here is the Star Market site where the development is going on. So you can see that this has been lumped in to be part of these houses as a redevelopment along Broadway and not lumped in with the rest of Wheatland Street. It's sort of set apart, if you will. It's the only house on this part of Wheatland Street until you get all the way down to Mystic Ave that actually is not neighborhood residents, which tells you what the city thinks of it. So I would state that there's nothing interesting, special, or significant about it. It's not associated with any historical people or events or any reputed architect or builder. As you can see, it's just kind of this little typical dreary kind of house here up against a brick wall and other larger buildings. As such, the applicant asks that you find it not to be significant.
Thank you. Anything else you want to add, or are we going to switch to public comment?
Oh, feel free. I'm here to, we're here to answer any questions, myself and Mr. D'Oliveira.
All right. In that case, we will move to the public comment portion of this hearing. If anybody, members of the public, would like to speak, please raise your hand and staff will unmute you.
Chair Parks, this is Madison Anthony speaking. I do not see anyone raising their hand right now.
All right, we'll close the public comment portion of this case. And we'll take it up the commission. Who has initial thoughts on this? By the way, I love the graphics in the staff report. This is very nice. Well, if no one has thoughts, I don't see a great case for significance in this case. Personally, it is relatively intact form-wise, but it doesn't really speak to an, other than the fact that it is a gable facing the street, which is most houses in Somerville. Its context has been pretty heavily altered. On the left and on the right side, there's a new ginormous odd shed dormer going on, and I don't know. It's not, that's my first thought.
I would have to say that Attorney Dash made a few compelling arguments. But that being said, it hurts my heart to think about tearing something down that's been there for 151 years. But I do also understand the city's push for more units. It is interesting that it was the first of 3 homes that was put on the street, and it was built well before 1874. But a lot of it has been stripped, and we have no purview over what's inside, and I can't imagine that much is left inside. And so I would agree with Chair Parks' comments. There's not a lot significant left about the structure, even though it's 151 years old or more.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd share the sentiments that I've read so far. I mean, when I first saw it, I would agree that there's nothing that jumps out as being particularly significant when you do look at the road and all the gable end roofs. That was one thing that was, that showed a pattern, but in terms of the property itself and the lack of any other historical attachments to ownership or something significant happening there, I'd have a hard time feeling enthusiastic about declaring it significant. So, done.
Thanks, Ryan.
I think I end up coming down on the side of significance. And it's although there's been siding and all the other things people have talked about, it's basically complete and intact. The building is there, the shape is there, the fenestration, although I'm sure none of the windows are original, but the fenestration is still there. And so this seems to me, whatever we would decide with regard to preferably preserved, it seems to me that there's enough there that I would call this significant.
Next thing. Yeah, these ones like this are always a little bit rough that way because it, at face value, it is a building that retains its original form, been modified with siding and all that. And yes, it is older than many houses around it. It said after myself, why do I feel less enamored with it? And I think it's maybe because its building type itself is so standard, and it's not really part of its context anymore. I mean, I don't know that there is some by nature that's sort of a subjective thing, but that's the way I feel about it. Anybody else want to add any other thoughts?
I can be easily swayed, and I wish Mr. Bauer would have started. There's not much left to the house. If it were stripped down and brought back to life, it could be a really charming, darling thing. And I think that there is some benefit. I understand that the zoning block right there was dictated by the city. I don't know if they necessarily went lot by lot to determine their opinion of the structure, but do we ever get to know what is going to go there, or is it just not part of?
I think that's relevant when we get to considering preferably preserved, because preferable is preferable to what? And so when we get to that stage, we can think, is it preferable to preserve it, or would it be preferable to do what the folks are proposing to do? But at this stage, the question is just, do we think it is significant? And for the reasons that I gave, I end up coming down on the side of yes.
So we have another opportunity to, the next step is to find out. I mean, I've been on here long enough. You think I would know, but we're just deciding if it's historically significant to get to the next point where we can have another discussion with some sort of proposal. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Then I think I've changed my mind, and I'm sorry about that, everybody, because it just makes it more difficult. But I guess I believe that the home should be historically significant due to its architectural features, possibly underneath all of the disappointing vinyl, and the fact that it was built prior to 1874, and it was one of the first 3 homes built on the block. And I look forward to seeing what they have in store for it.
That's why we discuss things. All right, well, unless anybody else has anything else to add, we could go for a motion. We could see how things fall.
Now I'm going to move that we determine that the building is significant.
A motion by Mr. Bauer. Anyone want to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, a motion for significance. A yes vote is for significance, a no vote would be not significant. All in favor?
Aye.
And opposed? I'll stick with my no. Do a roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey,
No.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote no. So I don't remember how things work when we're tied. I think we need Ty's staff. Can you remind us? Madison?
This is Madison speaking. I might have to actually double check.
I should know this because I think it's come up. I'm pretty sure that a tie vote is basically a no or no
Yes.
change.
As a general matter, that's right. I think the question is whether the context here matters.
Yeah.
This is an application by the proponents to get a demolition permit, and a tie vote would mean no demolition permit. But the question
Hmm.
that's in front of us is significant. And here we have a tie vote on that. And I don't know how those two things interrelate.
That a double negative becomes a positive.
Well, that's sort of the question.
I would think if you wanted to know, I would think that the motion would fail if it doesn't have a majority vote. So then it would be found it's not found significant, and that's the end of the matter with the commission. That's my take on it. 'Cause you would need a majority to have that motion prevail.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Please.
this is Sarah Lewis with PPZ. I did just text our venerable friend Sarah White to see what her answer might be on the procedure here. I was the case planner on this, so if there are any other questions while we wait to find out, I can answer those.
Okay. Thank you. I mean, typically, in my experience, when there's a tie vote, it sort of falls on the I would think that would be kind of what Attorney Dash is saying, that it becomes the default is less restrictive in a way, or less encumbrance to the applicant, but yeah, that's not my call ultimately. Can we move forward with findings while that's fleshed out? Or do we need to know what I mean, the findings will be, actually, I guess we can't really.
This is Madison Anthony speaking. I'll turn my camera on. I think we can move forward with findings because the board has already made their decision. What really matters now is what the applicant's next step is, I believe, and whether or not they need to move on to preferably preserved. But that should not affect the findings.
Except that the findings need to reflect the outcome, the ultimate outcome. So if it's
Yeah.
Okay, the motion fails
So,
Motion fails.
is what happens.
so I'm looking at the ordinance now. And the ordinance says no building may undergo demolition. I'm going to speak in shorthand, and I can put it up if you need me to look. And I think I'm looking at the current version. No building may undergo demolition unless, and then there are 6 things. Number 1, doesn't meet the basics of being old enough. It's located in an exempt area. It's determined not to be preferably preserved. The period is exhausted. Then the one that seems to be applicable here is the building is determined by the commission or its designee to not be significant. So my opinion, and this is preliminary, and we may need the city solicitor to weigh in, but my opinion would be it requires an affirmative vote that it's not significant in order for us to okay demolition. And therefore that a tie vote would be the equivalent of that it's significant. And again, I want to emphasize that's just a quick look at this, and I don't purport to be an expert.
Okay, I have word from our senior planner, our senior historic planner. And she says if the motion was for determination of historic significance and the vote was tied, then the building does not get to be historically significant and the case should be over there. So I think
So Madison,
It-
let me ask, is she saying if the vote was that it is not significant and it failed, that would make it significant? I mean,
the vote was that it was
but
historically
it can't be a
significant.
function, but it can't be a function of how the motion
No,
was
the
framed.
motion was that it was historically significant, and because it was a tie, the motion failed.
Right, but if, suppose I had made a motion that it's not significant and we had a tie vote, what would the answer be? Because in
Mhm.
terms of the ordinance, it can't be a question of how the motion is framed.
Well, I think it could be because that's what you voted on. I think that's exactly the case. I think when you read from the ordinance, that there's no building demolition unless determined, the significance was determined just now, and I think we're done. I think Ms. White is correct. I mean, I'm certainly, well, if you want to send it to the city solicitor, I mean, I don't want to keep you here
Sure.
tonight.
Through the chair, can I try to say it a different way? So it doesn't matter what the motion was quite as much as the fact that the vote was tied means that there was not a vote of historical significance. If there had been one more vote, then it would have been
Right, but there was also-
significant and it would have passed.
Right, but that would be the easy question, is if we had one more vote. The question
Right.
is what do we do about the tie, but the ordinance requires us to determine that it's not significant, and we didn't determine that either.
But I think because it's one or because it's neither, it
Right.
doesn't move forward.
Well, when you say it doesn't move, under the
It doesn't-
ordinance, if it's neither, then they can't do demolition. That's what the ordinance says. The ordinance requires a positive vote that it's not significant. And we didn't have a positive vote in either direction.
So, thank you. It's weird because then it comes down to how you phrase the vote, which gets kind of silly. How can we move this forward in a way?
So we suggest this. So let's make some findings. And this may require review by the city solicitor about what the outcome is, but we don't, we've made our decision tonight, which is 2-2. And then the city solicitor is going to have to weigh in and say that means it's not significant and they can go ahead, or it means it's not significant and they can't go ahead. But we don't have to answer that question tonight more than we have. So I would suggest we make some findings. And then the city solicitor will weigh in.
The only thing with findings is that they're phrased based on the anticipated outcome. So I don't know how we could really cover both bases there.
One
Unless
could
it's the kind of thing
condition-
where we could continue the findings or something like that, and then.
You
Um,
could
I-
conditionally
yeah.
come up with findings both ways, depending on how the outcome is. If the vote is determined that it's significant, then the findings are this. If not, then the findings are that, and then we don't have to do this hearing again.
Admit it, you love coming to us.
I'll probably be at you. I'm going to be at you next time anyway. I'm just trying to save some time for
Yeah,
Mr.
no, that's
D'Oliveira,
fine.
that's all.
Yeah, that seems like a good
Um,
suggestion to me.
Okay. Well then this is the first for me. But let's adopt findings with two conditions then. If the vote is determined to have been a decision that it's not significant, then the findings would be that it lacks, let's see, since that's my side, I need to come up with this.
Mr. Chair, I am getting word from our senior historic planner that the case is over if it is not found historically significant. So I'm not sure we need to go through this whole both findings for both situations process. Because I'm not sure how this would affect the written decision if we were to have two sets of findings.
Yeah, well, also,
Well,
who would protest,
think
I
if-
guess.
I was gonna say, I mean, the findings, I think, are probably gonna be substantially the same, where everybody would agree that the bill, and I'm not speaking in shorthand, that the building's been messed with a lot. That the building that was originally to its left is no longer there. I think, but I don't want to speak for everybody else, that everybody could agree that the basic massing of the building is there, that the basic fenestration is there. And that's enough findings, I think, for tonight. Those would support either conclusion. That is, if we agreed that it was not preferably preserved, those findings would support that. And if we agreed that that it was preferable, I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. If we agreed that it was not significant, or if we agreed it's significant, those are the basic findings, and then we have to reach a conclusion based on those findings. And our conclusion, I think, may have to be determined by the city solicitor, but we can make those findings now.
That's an interesting point. So there's no reason we can't adopt, I mean, the findings are just statements of fact, basically,
Right.
or whether or not they support the ultimate conclusion or not, they exist in the findings. Okay. Yeah, so we could like it lacks enough of its original exterior elements that the context it no longer contributes to a continuity in the streetscape. Is not associated with an important historic person or event. It is an intact building from the previous older than 1872. It's one of the original 3 houses on the street. We could list those things. Okay. And I doubt the applicant is going to complain if it's insist that we determine it significant because it was a tie. So, yeah.
Asking me that?
Yes. I'm putting words in your mouth.
I'm curious what the city solicitor will say. I think the
Yeah.
motion fails, and I think I agree with Ms. White that we're done, but I'm certainly open to hearing what the city solicitor has to say.
Sure.
I like Dick's idea of having one set of conditions that could go both ways. I think that's very clever.
Okay. Any changes to those conditions, or should we vote on that? Or additions? Otherwise, let's have a motion to adopt those.
Yep, I move to adopt those as our findings.
I second that.
Okay, a motion by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Ms. Price. All in favor of adopting these conditions? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we'll do the roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Yes.
Mr. Falvey. You're muted, Mr. Falvey.
Sorry about that. No.
Okay, Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
Thank
All
you
right.
for an
Thank you.
interesting evening. Next time,
Yeah,
make sure you have an odd
sure,
number of members here. So,
This,
Didn't intend tonight to be so entertaining.
well, you take them when you can get them.
I can't
Thank
believe
you.
I've been on this commission this long without
Yes.
this coming up, which is,
I can't remember it ever coming up.
I can't remember it ever coming up either.
It seems
'cause you've always
odd.
had an odd number of people. So,
That may be the explanation,
as opposed to just odd people, or is,
as opposed to
didn't say
just odd
that.
people.
I
did
didn't
not
say
see. All right, thank
We're
you.
speaking for ourselves and not for the applicants in that regard.
Yes, right. Self-deprecation is the rule in our commission.
all good.
Um,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our last case tonight is, oops, I just lost my agenda, is HP 24-000119, address is 60 Franklin Street. The applicant is Pablo Picker Construction, or Piker. My apologies, I mispronounced your name. The owner is Shelley Milligan. The applicant seeks to demolish a building constructed a minimum of 75 years ago. And it's just a reminder, this is a determination of preferably preserved status, as a case that we heard a while back for significance. Is the applicant here tonight?
Yes, good evening. Madison, would you mind promoting also Sarah Dunbar? She's the architect.
you.
And also, if you don't mind allowing her to share her screen. And then just let me know when that's good and I can, I'll just make a quick introduction, if you don't mind.
Great. Should I share screen right now? Let me see.
Yes.
Is this working fine? Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks, Madison. I will mute myself once Sarah starts sharing. Good evening, Commission. That was entertaining to watch from this side. So hopefully this one's a little bit more simple. My name's Pablo Picker. Sarah put together a really informative presentation that we want to share with you, also the public. Just a quick background, as we got here through the significance of a important person that lived in this building, Alice Waterhouse. It was very informative, and it was it was nice to understand the history there. Sarah's going to walk us through why we feel this should not be preferably preserved. Just for a quick context, I do not own the building, as you mentioned. The owner does not live there. They are out of state. This structure is in an estate right now, and it is vacant. And it has significant issues with it. We hope that the board will understand that this lot, while has some history, as we found, has a future that I think will be more beneficial to the neighborhood and to the city. So I'm going to let Sarah go through our presentation, and then we're happy for any questions after the public comments. Thank you.
Hello, nice to see you all again. Sarah Dunbar with Neighbor Architects. And so we were here 2 months ago for the hearing about significance. And the building was found significant because it had been owned and lived in by Alice Waterhouse, who was a prominent spiritualist in the late 1800s through the early 1900s. So that was an interesting thing to find out about. And we think that history, and then also the history of female ownership in the neighborhood, is a compelling, interesting history. I'm also a female business owner, and our architecture firm is a woman-owned business enterprise. So that resonates with me too. So just looking into the neighborhood more, we did a little research, in between our last meeting and now, and we were looking a little bit more closely at the NR zoning districts at our site and around our site. So this is our site in blue. You can see it's like skinny and long. It's a very deep site and somewhat narrow. And then these are all NR zoning zoned parcels right around our site and up through Prospect Hill. You can see the rail lines that run kind of between the hill and East Somerville, and then also the McGrath Highway, which really, historically divided this section of East Somerville from Prospect Hill. And then within these NR zoning districts, you're allowed, as you guys all know, to do 1 to 3 unit houses. And so, or 1 to 3 unit buildings. You can also do a backyard cottage if you have the space. And so that is the type of proposal we would do on this site. So we would do something that is as of right and is this kind of small scale multifamily housing that really is what makes up Somerville and what Somerville has historically been about. And then just looking at this map, what you can see in all these like blue and purple shades are all of the NR parcels in this same zone that we're looking at that were built before 1950. So more than 75 years ago. And so that of the ones that we sampled, that's 96% of the NR parcels on this little sampling. I think across the city, it's more like 90%. So like the rest of Somerville, and maybe even more so in this neighborhood, this 1 to 3 unit housing stock is very, very old. This rail line, my understanding is this was the first railroad in the country, and Washington Street was this commercial hub with all of this, these goods coming in on all of the rail lines that converged just south of here. And so this was a busy place, you know, for more than 100 years. And then of course, mid 20th century became less busy until people started getting interested in living in the city again. And then in orange and yellow, you can see the buildings built since 1950, so in the last 75 years. So not that many if you're just looking at this NR zoning district, the 1 to 3 family types. You can see these 2 parcels just north of ours, which is right here, actually were heavily reconstructed recently. And then this is the combination, all of the blues and purples, and then also the oranges and yellows. So overall, 4%, you know, built in the last 75 years. And then zooming in, again, our parcel right here, and this is just to show how it is this narrow and then very deep configuration, and really kind of like twice as deep as some of these other little ones. And so it's something where it is really comfortable to do a few units and not only a single family home. And again, looking at the context, these buildings to the north, these 2, which are, you know, essentially reconstructed with a little bit, well, essentially reconstructed. They are all kind of a townhouse configuration. This one is historic and is a townhouse configuration of 3 side by side. I think it's divided up further inside because it was listed as 8 units. And then 60 Franklin, smaller structure on the steep lot. And so even though there hasn't been a lot of construction, as the previous maps showed, in this one little zone, there recently in the last, you know, 15 years or so and a bit less, there has been a fair amount just right here. So it is kind of an interesting thing. And then looking a little, you know, just looking at the house itself, the house has not been inhabited for a while, as Pablo was saying. It is not in good condition. So this is the front elevation. This is probably like the best looking view of the house. You can see the shingles are aged and curling. On the south elevation, you can see that especially some parts are really in very bad shape. And then you can see places where windows were infilled. And also that, you know, even though it is this long south facing elevation, there's not a lot of glazing along it. And so it's maybe not like architecturally, it wouldn't be what we would consider the best use of the site. And then at the back of the house, there's really severe degradation of the facade in the rear, and severe degradation of the porch. And then when you're on the north side, this is actually the neighbor's driveway. So this was all redone right at this kind of CMU wall is the parcel boundary. 60 Franklin is just beyond the CMU wall. It's very, very close to the parcel boundary. And here you can see again, like very degraded shingles and water damage, especially on the back of this kind of middle volume, which I think was an addition at one point. And then that the other addition volume, this volume, these are all in pretty bad condition. And then the house, you know, still has knob and tube wiring throughout, which is not great. So obviously would all need to be replaced. Anything plumbing, mechanical, electrical would be 100% replaced if this was restored. You know, it could not be used. And then the building itself, the structure has been propped up with like lally columns and whatnot in the basement. But there's a lot of settling. There's a fair amount of water damage, and it's just old and in, you know, a very difficult condition. So if we were supposed to preserve and rehabilitate this house, it would really need to be reconstructed. The structure would need to be substantially reconstructed from within. The cladding would all need to be replaced. The windows would need to be replaced. All the systems would need to be replaced. And there would, of course, be like remediation throughout. And the cost for the size of the house would just be prohibitive. I think it would not financially make sense in the neighborhood that we're talking about, and so it wouldn't be a viable project. And so then again, just to loop back to the text of the ordinance. So the text of the ordinance, lists that the goal is to preserve, rehabilitate, or restore buildings rather than demolish them when they can be and should be preserved. And so this is just not a building that can or should be preserved. And it's not a building whose preservation is going to be a financial or cultural benefit to the city. We do think knowing about Alice Waterhouse is a benefit to the city, and we would be very happy to install a plaque or to put together like a report on her that can be in the Somerville Museum or at the Somerville Library. And we think that would be the appropriate response, because the house itself is not something that has to do with the way that she lived, or that has the kind of architectural significance that warrants the cost that would have to go in order to rehabilitate it. And anyways, that's probably a good amount to go through right now.
I'd like to, thank you, Sarah. Just quickly, commissioners, and thanks for your patience. I think this is important context for the public realm to understand how we get here and what we're all working together on as a group. I would just like to jump off of what Sarah said. I actually took the time many months ago when we had the first hearing after the significance finding, after the report came out. In the first hearing, your findings were all about Alice Waterhouse and the significance of her. I actually called the National Spiritual Alliance in Western Mass. I actually spoke with the only surviving member that was associated with that. He was 90 years old. We had a nice conversation. I think in my mind, as a builder, that would be the most logical organization that would take on a project like this if the commission's desire was to preserve this building because of the findings of a significant person. I directly asked them, this person is an organization that has no money, has almost no membership. This is not a project that they could possibly nor would be interested in. That was very clear. And as Sarah mentioned, I think us as a group, if we were to move forward with this, the purchasing of this property, we would be more than happy to commemorate the significance and the history of this property, and at the same time, welcome the need for the city and for the neighborhood, to not have a vacant property for many months, and welcome, new families for the future that could be homeowners. So with that, I will say thank you, Sarah. Thank you, commissioners. I'm looking forward to the public and your discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to stop share, but it's like frozen. Oh, I think it's doing it.
I would give some more context, but I forget, before we say anything else, let's go to the public comment. If any members of the public would like to speak about this case, please raise your hand and the staff will unmute you.
This is Madison Anthony speaking. Once you are promoted to speak, you will have 2 minutes to make your comment. Give me 1 second. All right, and I am allowing Aaron Bennett to speak. Aaron, whenever you're ready.
Hi, I'm a resident in East Somerville. And I just wanted to say the building seems in pretty rough shape. Doesn't seem particularly distinctive, and I don't think it warrants preservation. I do like the idea of a plaque commemorating the spiritualist, though. Thanks, that's all I have to say.
Did you give your address for the record?
Sure. I'm on at 79 Columbus Avenue in Somerville.
Thank you.
All right, this is Madison speaking again. I am allowing Aaron Weber to speak. Aaron, once you're allowed to speak, you'll have 2 minutes, and please state your address for the record.
Hi, my name is Aaron Weber. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I live at 32 Summit Avenue. My grandmother ran an antique shop, and I learned from her the difference between something that's old and something that's an antique. And this seems like what, more than 90% of all of Somerville's buildings is more than 75 years old, but it does not seem significant. The connection to the spiritualist movement is interesting, but you know, there have been a lot of charlatans over the years. The fact that one of them lived here is frankly not that interesting to me either. I would fully support this lot being turned into more than one home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking. I do not see anyone else raising their hands.
All right. In that case, we'll close the public comment portion of the hearing for this case. And just a reminder that, as was the case, I believe, with some of the projects up the street there, if a building is determined to be properly preserved, there are a variety of outcomes which could range from keeping it, retaining it, to just memorializing it in ways that we've discussed. Having, you know, a replacement building reference something to do with the old building. There are all sorts of outcomes to it. So it's not just that it's not necessarily a didactic kind of thing. In fact, I think that was the case with most of the houses that were replaced up the street, because I was on the commission at that time. I think they were all the result of back and forth with following a properly preserved hearing, and the result was buildings that were more sympathetic to the style of the street that way, that also allowed multifamily stuff going on. So just a little backfill there. Also, I think, as I recall from the findings on this, I think we were also interested in this being a reflection of these early mid-19th century worker housing, of which this was originally a whole little cluster of them. And I think there's some of these down the street as well. So I think that was another factor that led to our thinking it was significant. So that aside, anyone on the commission want to have some discussion on this?
I will jump in. I mean, my inclination is that there's not enough there to be preferably preserved. I think I would let this one go.
Thank you.
I think the history of the house is very, very interesting. And I mean, this woman was a physician, and she was part of this spiritual movement for 70 years. And it's an interesting situation that she owned it and lived there and conducted these. I'm not sure if she conducted ceremonies or anything in the house. I don't think we have that information, but it's disappointing that the house is in bad condition. And I think that I could lean towards not having it deemed preferably preserved. But I would like to have a plaque or some information, and this is something that if there's a plaque or if it's documented, I'm reading through one of some of the 4 things that we can ask for. I mean, I don't think there's anything to be salvaged in there. But a plan for installation of historic or interpretive signage at or near the site. I think it's sad to lose the history of a woman-owned house and a very independent woman that worked hard at a time when it wasn't culturally advantageous for her to do that. But I think if we could figure out a way as a group to memorialize that, I think that would feel better for me.
Thank you, Ms. Price.
I would support that.
How about you, Mr. Falvey? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the sentiments that I've heard expressed so far. I'd be fine with a plaque or some other appropriate memorial being established to recognize the history and the occupant there, which I think is really interesting. And I think oftentimes too that some of these plaques that I've seen around or external sort of remembrances like that oftentimes are more meaningful and tell more of a story than just having the house there itself too, right? So I think if something is done in a thoughtful way, and that's a real interesting story about that individual, you know, I think you could do a nice job kind of respecting her contribution to the significance of Somerville. And I definitely don't feel as though you need the house to do that. Done.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah, I note that this is a relatively new ad in the last few years, the ability to vote something not preferably preserved with conditions. The only thing I would add is, in the case of the other buildings up the street, the part of the process of being preferably preserved also guided the design of the buildings to being a little bit more sympathetic to what was originally the character of the building, of the street. Without that attached to this, anything could go there, as long as it has a plaque in front saying this is what used to be here. That might not matter in this case. I don't know. And also just to clarify, this building needs to get replaced because someone intends to put something more intensive there. So it's sort of a subjective thing. Somebody who wants a single family house for the right price would buy that and fix it up and be happy, live happily ever after. So it's not that it is required to be demolished to continue to be a house for somebody. It's that it needs to be demolished in order for a prospective owner to achieve a more intense use of it, which I respect. You know, we want to build stuff, but it's a little bit disingenuous to say that that place can't be kept. It's just that it's worth more as something else to somebody else. So that little diatribe aside, I think I would support a vote that you all have been kind of lining up behind, where we could vote for it to be not preferably preserved.
Mr. Chair, this is Madison speaking again.
Yeah.
If there's going to be a commemorative plaque, I think there needs to be a condition like explicitly added about the plaque. So make sure to mention that when
Okay.
you're making your findings. And also, do we know who's writing the plaque? Is it city staff? And then because I know typically it's city staff who writes those.
Is that so for the generally one as a condition for a lot of the other demolitions, is that who does those then? You're saying it's a city that designs those and gives it to the builder to pay for? Is that how that works?
Typically, this is something that comes up in the memorandum of agreement process. Not necessarily
Yeah,
that I'm aware of, not necessarily at the preferably preserved level.
so we have to sort of, let's see, get that fleshed out here. Well, can we, as we do sometimes with staff review stuff, can we make a contingent on staff approval of the final? I mean, we can't literally put every word in this plaque, so we're going to ultimately have to give some leeway with you and the applicant. We could give general ideas with it, I think, which would be to,
I am discussing with our senior planner right now how we should go about this.
okay.
1 second, sorry. Lots of weird first situations happening tonight. Okay. Pablo, could you flash a picture of the plaque again that you designed? Sorry.
Yeah, sure. Sarah, do you mind bringing that up? If you have,
Well,
can you
we
just
we
give Sarah a
didn't.
screen?
Yeah, we didn't actually design the plaque
Okay.
yet. We
But
just
the
showed
concept.
a clipping of the
Yeah,
um,
that's fine.
something from your
Um,
report. But
Okay.
I think we'd be happy for it to be the condition be that it's a plaque that gets approved by planning staff and the historic commission. Like maybe if it just says that now, so that then there's time to get the correct language.
Okay, yeah,
Right.
and city staff usually comes up with the language on that.
Yep.
Okay,
And
alright.
I don't know if it depends on how nitpicky one wants to get, but should we specify it's at least, I don't know, 2 by 2 or something like that? Are there general size constraints that you use for the other city ones?
So, I guess we also have to determine whether it's like one of those small LHD plaques or like signage, which is usually a 3 by 4 foot sign on posts that people can like read when they walk by.
I think that the little signs, from what I understand, are actually kind of interesting to a lot of people. I mean,
Okay.
people, once in a while you get some feedback that someone discovers something in their little walk around and they had no idea this is what happened there. So if anything, it gives some kind of a fun waypoint.
I
I'm
think
sorry, 3 foot by 4 foot? Did I understand that right?
So there's a difference between the plaques, which are the small little like LHD signages that we put on buildings. They're like
They're 8
hey,
inches.
yeah, like this happened here. And then there's signage, which is a 3 foot by 4 foot like interpretive sign that people can like read as they walk by. I think a plaque is fine.
so.
I think there's
Um,
an in-between size,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
on a
like
pole.
more like 18 inches by 12. I don't know, something like that.
Yeah,
That's right.
Sorry,
A
go ahead.
plaque does not seem adequate. We were all talking about interpretive signage, but 3 by 4 seems awfully big.
I
I
agree.
think it's
So-
a little bit.
So, Madison, if we just make as a condition that there will be an interpretive sign, an appropriate interpretive sign commemorating Alice Waterhouse, who lived there, subject to staff review, does that give enough that staff will be able to work with that and figure out what is appropriate? And to the applicants, does that work for you?
It's Sorry, Madison, if I can respond from the applicant, it definitely works for us. And I might also add that in the original report, it spoke a lot about Alice being one of 5 women on the street. So not only this site, but I think referencing the street, the history of the street, I think makes a lot of sense. And we're more than happy to follow those guidelines.
Okay. I think we do need to specify whether it's a plaque or historic signage in the
I think plaque
the
seems too small.
decision. So okay,
I
so
think
historic
historic
signage.
signage at eye level or there, but it doesn't need to be a full 3x4. So I think something that's on a pole that's, as the applicant mentioned, maybe
Okay.
18 to 24.
I have
There's
a picture of one that's in Cambridge. Do you guys want me to share as reference? I don't know the exact size.
That's okay. I think we have
The
a system
visual.
for doing it in Somerville.
Okay, I won't then.
And just subject
But-
matter, talk about her, that movement. It would be nice if it had some sort of a graphic of the house, maybe, to show that the type of structure that was there, because that really also serving as a testament to that neighborhood, which is rapidly disappearing as people find ways to make money out of it. It's these little collections of old worker houses are relatively scarce in the city, and they're becoming much more scarce. We've lost an entire area of them on Clyde Street and Warwick and those areas. So I think if this could also kind of tie into that, just to, if nothing else, just an image of what the house used to look like. And I think that's really about it. And it doesn't have to be.
Sorry, if I may share the front elevation, I think could be a nice shot on that.
Yeah.
On that signage.
Okay, so for condition language, how about historic signage commemorating the former resident, I forget her name off the top of my head.
Alice
And the historic
Waterhouse.
nature,
Yeah.
Alex Waterhouse, and the historic nature of the house and its relation to the neighborhood, as written and designed by city staff, or written and designed by city staff in a size that they determine appropriate.
That works.
Okay.
For me.
Yes.
And something durable.
Yes. So let's include the word durable in the condition.
Okay, so we're still at the voting stage to whether to vote on this. And are there any other conditions that we would attach to this? I don't think we can really delve into design review or anything like that would normally come about as part of the preferably preserved process. So I think in that sense, we're sort of letting go of that if we're proceeding this way.
Do we at least want photographic documentation of the building or architectural renderings?
Oh,
Because without that, I think it's just lost to memory.
Yeah, we already kind of have some of that. So that, and I think is that in your report, your, and go back, pull that up here.
It's on page 5.
Photographic documentation of the building, but lost architectural renderings. I don't think we've talked about anything that ought to be salvaged. So looking at those proposed conditions on page 5, item C, I think we could probably strike number 3 unless someone else has something they've caught their eye.
I think 1 and 4 is sufficient for me.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that we determine this property to be not significant on condition that
You mean preferably preserved, not,
I'm sorry, yes,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm someplace else. Thank you, Eric. Not preferably preserved, subject to condition 1 and 4, with condition 4 being in the terms spelled out previously by Madison and several other people.
okay.
Second
Second.
motion.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor? of that?
Aye.
And just to be clear, we're voting, an affirmative vote is to declare it not preferably preserved with those conditions. So we'll do a roll
That's-
call, starting with Mr. Bauer.
Okay, yes, and thank you for the clarification.
No, sure. The previous case has to be gun shy. Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. And then we need to adopt findings, which I'll leave to one of you to lay out.
Ms. Price, maybe you could suggest the findings regarding Alice Waterhouse, and then we can add on additional things about the condition of the building and ability to salvage it.
Well, what I am saying is positive, and we're voting.
Right.
Okay, all right.
But it's sort of
So-
substantiating the conditions. So I think that's makes it part of what we're up to.
Associating the conditions.
Well, I mean, in a way, it's sort of backing up the conditions that we've.
Oh, I see, with the plaque and so on. Okay. I guess that Miss Waterhouse was a prominent figure as a female physician and within the spiritual movement in the area, and that she lived in the home for about 48 years.
And as for conditions as to why we're not voting to preserve it, I think
Right.
what I've heard is that it lacks, it's
Oh.
too modified over its history,
Mhm.
I think.
It has been modified over the years.
I think that's what Mr. Bauer started off with.
Right, so I agree with Ms. Price about the substantial modification, and we can also note the condition, the deteriorated condition.
Okay.
Just not necessarily by itself enough, but here, taking all of these things, I think we are in agreement.
Yeah, to me, the condition isn't really bad enough that it has to be demolished. That's super subjective. I'd have clients who would fix it up in a heartbeat. But it is part of the whole, the aura of it. So, all right, is there a motion to adopt those findings?
So moved.
Seconded.
Okay, motion to adopt findings by Mr. Bauer, seconded by Ms. Price. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We'll do our roll call. Mr. Bauer,
Yes,
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. There you have it, folks.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say thanks for coming tonight.
Oh, thank for yeah, thank you for your service, and have a great night.
You too.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Good
Bye.
luck.
Thank you.
Okay. On our agenda, the only other thing we have, I think, is a couple of minutes. Pull those up here. We have minutes from the April 15th and the April 1st, so both April meetings.
I reviewed both of them. I didn't have any changes.
Okay.
Right, I had two things from the April 1st meeting.
What would those be?
So one of them, and it's actually sort of foreshadowed the problem we had tonight. So with regard to 199 Elm Street, find it in here. And the vote that we took on it. So this is near the bottom of page 4. And it's above where it says result. And then above that is a paragraph that begins following a motion. And then before that is another paragraph that begins following a motion.
This April 15th, Dick, or
No,
is
this is the April 1st.
April 1st? Okay.
Right. So there were 2 votes on 199 Elm. And I'm looking at the first vote. It says following a motion by member Shagnon, seconded by member Price, the commission voted 2-3 with members Shagnon, Falvey, and Chair Parks against to find the property at 199 Elm Street historically significant. So the vote was 2 in favor of significance and 3 against, which is why it says 2-3. But the language then says the vote was to find it significant when the vote was actually to find it not significant. So even though the motion was to find it significant, the vote was not significant.
So the vote was not significant by a 2-3 result.
That's right. 3 people said not significant, 2 said it was significant.
And then the following that the motions were adopted by a 3-2 vote.
Right. That was on findings.
But I mean, the findings, yeah.
Right. So that was actually how I noticed it. I thought, why was I voting against the findings in support of a decision to find it significant? So then I reread it and realized that even though it said the vote was to find it significant, the vote was actually to find it not significant.
Yeah. Are you suggesting that we rephrase that, or you're just bringing attention to the?
I think we should rephrase it.
What address was this again? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. This is 199 Elm Street.
Okay, and on which set of minutes? Was it the
This is the
318?
April 1st.
Okay.
And it's on page 4 near the bottom.
Could it just be fixed with just a few words where it says with members Chagnon, Falvey, and Chair Parks against, or Chair Parks to find the property at 99 Elm not historically significant. So it's just getting rid of against. So striking against and to find the property at 99 Elm not historically significant. And I think that might fix it.
Yep, I think so.
So does that
I
make
think
sense,
you're right.
Madison?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
And we can vote to have the minutes approved as amended.
Mhm.
If you want to go ahead and approve it with those changes, or
I had
we could have it sent back to
one
you.
more change.
Okay.
Which is on page 5. said we voted unanimously to approve the March 4th minutes. You know, Madison, whether I was there on March 4th?
Uh,
I think I
let me go
probably,
in. Let me go in and look.
yeah, look at the March 4th minutes themselves.
Wait, just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Fourth. All right. It looks like Dick was not there on March 4th.
Right. And which means I almost certainly abstained from a vote on the minutes when we voted on them on April 1st. So
That would be true.
gonna, I mean, you can vote on things even if you're not there. But I probably didn't. So I'm gonna propose changing this to read that the commission voted 4-0 to approve the minutes with me abstaining.
All right. I think, yeah, I think that's worth noting in the changes for sure. So we will make that change.
Great, thanks.
Thank you for those changes, Dick.
Sure. So with those two changes, I propose that we approve the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the April 1st meeting minutes by Mr. Bauer. Is there a second?
Second.
With the two changes.
With the changes as previously discussed. Seconded by Mr. Falvey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? And we'll do our roll call. Mr. Bauer,
yes,
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. And then we will move to the April 15th minutes. Are there any changes to those? I don't have any.
I did not see anything.
I didn't see anything.
All right, in that case, is there a motion to approve those?
Motion to approve April 15th minutes.
Second,
Okay, motion approved by Mr. Falvey, seconded by Mr. Bauer. All in favor? Aye.
yes,
Aye.
Yes. Whichever. Opposed? And we'll do a roll call again with Mr. Bauer,
yes,
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes. And I think that is, let me just check, go back to our agenda here.
You got a CPC update?
Oh yeah, CPC update. So we had a meeting this time, and so it was sort of a follow-up on the public hearing that we'd had the previous month. And I think we took up a few things. One was an off-cycle request for some funding from the Kennedy Schoolyard redesign. This is one that had been approved a few years back, and because of escalating costs, et cetera, they needed more money to do it. This happens sometimes. We get these requests that are sort of off-cycle. Often it's because a project has spanned a few years and costs go up. It's a little bit frustrating because it sort of like yanks money out of your funding, your pot at the last minute. And then we heard a bunch of updates on all the prior projects that have been awarded and they're underway, just to see what the status of things was. And then the other big thing is that Roberta has been updating the community, the preservation plan, the plan that we work with. So it's sort of like a reset, but nothing that impacts us as a historic commission was really discussed. no new funding requests or stuff like that. We're optimistic there is money coming in, a greater amount for the next funding round that will be coming up, so we'll have more to spend. And there's a lot of stuff chipping away at the needs for that. There's a lot of city improvements, built old buildings. The primary needers, the buildings that are most historic of the city buildings is the city hall, the old high school, the 18, I think it's just referred to by its year of construction, 1892, I think. The old 1895. The old fire station down at Cross Street and Broadway, which has been used for a variety of things, that needs some work. And then the other one that comes up is the old rec building down at Walnut Street. So those are all city-owned buildings that all need various amounts of care. So there might be requests to take some CPA money for that. Oh, and also the old SCAT building, the other fire station down in Union Square, that's getting, I think, remedial work, roof work done just to keep it from leaking anymore, but it needs a bunch of work, structural upgrades and stuff like that before they can reoccupy it. And that's the city has to figure out how to pay for all this stuff. But that's the long and the short of it. Any questions about the CPA stuff?
No, but thank you for all your work on that.
Yeah, most
No
definitely.
problem. No problem at all. I think that's it. Thank you for sticking it out in this topsy-turvy meeting.
Oh, and just a heads up about next meeting is it's going to be the election meeting where we I think it's chair, vice chair, and secretary. So I have to reach out. I'll be reaching out to Robin and see what she wants to do regarding the vice chair position. But just a heads up for when you see that on the agenda next time.
Is DJ our secretary now?
Think so.
And Madison, you'll make sure that gets onto the agenda.
Yep.
I mean, it may be helpful, Madison, also, we've asked to meet with the people who are doing the organizing of the commissions, and we've been given the memo about, timing out. And I think all of us have expired terms here, so it's not adding up, it's not going in electing a slate of officers when, 2 months ago we were notified that there's going to be replacement. So I think it's incumbent upon the powers that be at City Hall to get this cleared up with us before we vote. I'm not ready to make a vote unless there is clarity around, what's happening with the membership on this team. They owe us at least that, if not considerably more. So I'm happy to speak with anyone at City Hall about that as well, too.
All right. Yeah, I can tell you as of now, they haven't really started the process of the new membership application process rollout they were planning on. I think they got a lot of feedback from staff about that, so they're working on how they're gonna do it in a fair way to our current board and commission members. I know they were planning on having a session for board and commission members for Q&As, but I haven't heard anything about them actually setting that up.
The starting point.
I'm sorry?
I didn't mean to cut you short.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I haven't really heard anything since I think they did like a Q&A question with staff back in I think it was February about that. So I'm not sure where they're at with the process, but I can reach back out again.
Yeah. I mean, the starting point would be to just bring on enough new members to actually come up to being fully staffed before we and then need to worry about some people being squeezed out by new people. Some of us would be happy to be squeezed out by new people.
Yeah, I was just thinking that.
I think a lot would be happy to be squeezed, and I think that's what they don't seem to understand perhaps there.
Yeah, so I will reach out to them about that and try to get a better idea of what's going on.
That'd be helpful. Thank you.
Yeah. All
At
right.
this point, we have with Dick here, we have 4. With DJ would be our 5th. So the maximum we could do is 5 until Robin comes back. Yeah, so it's stretched.
Mhm.
All right. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
We don't want to
Good
make a
night.
motion to adjourn.
Thank you, and sorry to have thrown a monkey wrench into the voting procedures tonight, not once, but twice.
Welcome back, Dick. You're keeping us on our toes. It's great to
Yeah,
to
exactly.
do that, you know. Make motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion to adjourn by Mr. Falvey, seconded by Mr. Bauer. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed? And we'll do a roll call. Mr. Bauer,
yes.
Mr. Falvey,
Yes.
Ms. Price,
Yes.
and I'll vote yes.
Hey, thank you, Madison and Kristen. Appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thanks so
All
much.
You all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
right. Bye, everyone.